DiAnn, welcome, my friend. It's so great to see you.
Thank you. It's been a while since we've had a chance to chat, so this is exciting and fun, and I'm just thrilled. Thank you very much.
Me too. I'm so glad that you were able to come on, and today we're going to talk about your newest novel, Deadly Encounter. So tell us a little bit about what's the difference between FBI Houston series and FBI Task Force?
Well, in the FBI Task Force, I'm showing how the FBI partners with other law enforcement agencies, and in the case of Deadly Encounter, it's with the Health Department, the CDC, the Center for Disease Control, and the LRM, which is the Laboratory Research Network, which is an organization that works with law enforcement to figure out deadly diseases and how to find cures and things like that.
You must research all of this. I know you're part of the FBI Citizens Academy, so I want you to tell us a little bit about that, and because I'm assuming that's part of the research that you do for your books.
Absolutely. A couple of years ago, when I wrote my very first FBI book, I called Houston's FBI and asked for the media coordinator, explained that I was a writer and I was under contract and I wanted to write an FBI book, but I wanted to make sure that everything I wrote was accurate. And Shauna and I became really good friends. But what happened is I went into her office, and I'm sure that they gave me all the clearance that was needed. And so we talked about various ideas, scenarios. And at that time, I chose a solved cold case that I could fictionalize. Well, we finished with that, and she said, okay, what's the next book? So we have been working together for a long time. But she asked me, really did reinforce to me the commitment, the value, the professionalism of the FBI, the sacrifices they make, and the things they have to go through to keep us safe. So I have my FBI Citizens Cadet Academy.
Love it.
I don't wear hats very good. But anyway, I have that.
And you have another favorite thing that sort of goes along with your suspense. There it is.
It's my really good coffee mug.
Yeah.
Yes. And so in retrospect and in going forward, all the books that I have written about the FBI, an agent has read them. Shauna, usually the one who has read them. If I have questions about how they would react or respond or handle everything from types of bombs to protocol, if she doesn't have the answer, she will put me in contact with the person who does. And all they ever want are a couple of books signed to put in their library. You know, I'd give them a whole case if they wanted it.
No kidding, because that is a gold mine to have that kind of expertise. And it really shows in your novel. So just briefly, tell us a little bit about Deadly Encounter.
So what happens when a woman who is an airport ranger decides to break the rules a little bit and ride alone?
Airport Ranger volunteer Stacy Broussard expected a peaceful Saturday morning ride around the perimeter of Houston's airport. But what she encounters instead is a brutal homicide and a baffling mystery. Next to the body she stumbles upon is an injured dog, the dead man's motorcycle, and a drone armed with a laser positioned to take down a 747. FBI Special Agent Alex LeBlanc sees a clear-cut case of terrorism. His past has taught him to be suspicious of everyone, even witnesses. Even bleeding heart veterinarians like Stacy. But when her gruesome discovery is only the first in a string of incidents that throw her life into a tailspin, Alex begins to wonder if Stacy was targeted. As a health emergency endangers Stacy's community, and the task force pulls in leads from all directions, are these events mere coincidences or part of a carefully orchestrated plan? Can Alex and Stacy work together to prevent another deadly encounter?
That just laid the foundation for a story that I love to write. And I will say that the drone piece was the hardest of all of it.
I can imagine. It's the end of chapter 1 where you sort of have that beautiful setup, and you really are curious about the rest of it because there's so many different scenarios that could come from that situation. So yeah, how was that to figure out the drones?
Oh, I could have kicked myself a bazillion times. I had to tie it all together so that it was credible and yet unexpected.
Right.
And my good friend Stephen James, who writes phenomenal how-to books and suspense thrillers, that's one thing that he taught me some time ago, and that was to create the unexpected, the unpredictable, and yet believable.
Right.
That you can read what is going on and you can visualize it. Hopefully you can experience, that's always my goal. And you can see how that particular plot point happened and how it played into the story. You asked me about the airport rangers. To talk about the airport rangers, I have to go back to the Citizens Academy.
Okay.
There was a woman there I met, and we just kind of hooked up. I didn't know going into it that she'd read my books, and so she was curious about me. And I was curious about her because not only did she work with animals, but she was a member of the Houston Airport Rangers. Okay. And so I found out that they have to ride in groups of 2 or 3, and they ride the perimeter of the airport. The idea is that they report any crimes. Usually, she said it was just something like you could see evidence where someone had been drinking and partying, or maybe drugs, or maybe somebody who was homeless was sleeping, right. That kind of thing. So I said, "Did you ever find anything like a body?" And she said, "No." And then I thought, oh, but you could. And the more she talked to me about her love of animals, how much she loved her horse, and the airport rangers, I thought, I'm going to use this. I am really going to use this. And I said to her, "You've helped me so much. I've got to name my my character Stacy." Now, actually,
Stacy,
her name is...
I found her to be a very multi-layered woman. So she's a veterinarian. She's a Houston Ranger. I loved in the beginning of the book, I think it was in chapter 1 or 2, maybe it's chapter 1, where she says, that she finds herself a 35-year-old single, woman, and not looking, this is not the future she had planned long ago. And then something happens in her life that helps fulfill one of those desires. Do you want to tell us what it is without giving too much away?
Oh, there is a young boy in the story. His name is Whit. I fell in love with him.
Yes.
He did not have parenting, and she mothered him, and he in turn thrived in knowing that there were adults out there who were responsible and capable of love. And that's all I'm going to say. But
that's perfect. Don't say any more, because the relationship develops so beautifully, and not just with Stacy and Whit, but also with Xena, which plays a big part. She's the dog, or a dog, plays a big part in the story. And then, of course, there's Alex. And I got to tell you, I loved Alex, and I also loved that Whit almost loved Alex before Stacy comes to realize how much she cares about him. But tell us a little bit about Alex. How'd you find him?
Well, when I was thinking about two Cajuns, and all I could think of is they kill each other because they're known for their temper and temperament. I thought that the only woman who would come across as a challenge, this is the kind of woman I want, but I don't want that kind of a woman, so I'm running away.
Right.
And she would feel the same way. That's the kind of man I want, the kind of qualities. But you know what? I don't want that. If you were and I were talking about just pure romance, and you have a boy and a girl, boy meets girl, and it says boy likes girl, boy loses girl, boy gets girl. But this is the whole scenario of that.
Right.
And that's what we always have to show in a romance, is that the two people involved, they're almost afraid of each other.
Right.
Because giving your heart and trusting someone, that's difficult, especially if you end up getting hurt.
Alex has some baggage in that department. That's also related to his work. He's a fantastic. You describe Alex and Stacy as both of them are distant from God in their own way. How does someone who feels distant from God change that?
They have to want to change first. The desire has to be there, and that has to be met with lots of prayer. A prayer for brokenness is a hard prayer, but that's exactly where we have to go if we realize that we're putting a priority over God, right, or who we are, what we represent has taken over our identity instead of our identity in Christ. Spiritual change, any kind of change, has to be met with desire. And that's my recommendation for any and all spiritual situations, when you realize, something's not right.
Yeah.
And if God's perfect and he designs everything and he has a purpose for me, then I don't think it's what God's doing. I think I might be making a mistake.
Right. Yeah, and I've heard that. I know you go to church. You love your church. How does your church inform you as a reader, as a writer?
I don't know how many times that I've been sitting in church listening to a sermon, or in my small group class. Don't laugh, we have 700 in our small group class.
My goodness.
And I'll either get an idea. Well, you know what I did in my small group class? He was talking about something being genetically engineered. That's all I'm going to say. And it was what I was looking for.
Yeah.
It was, oh, yes. Or a quote. Pastor may say something that I'm thinking, you know what? I could massage that a little bit so it doesn't sound preachy. Right. And I could have a character say that or think that. Now, I always email him and ask him for permission.
Yeah.
But I know some of my friends say, oh, I don't dare write in church. But sometimes when they say something, I don't want to forget it.
Right.
And, my thing is if God wants us to have that information, it doesn't matter where we are, he'll give it to us.
Right, right.
One of my biggest goals in writing for the Christian market, writing a book that reflects faith, a Christian worldview. And I believe that I've got to have at least one character who solves problems, faces life from a Christian worldview.
Right.
That doesn't mean that I ever want to smack someone over the head with the Bible.
Right.
I don't value that, and I don't think my readers do either. My goal is to show that a character is different, and possibly have someone else say, oh, what makes you different?
Right.
That's always my goal. So also I want to write a story that readers will experience, and whether that reader is a person of faith or not, I want them to enjoy the story. If I plant some seeds there, to look more into what being a Christian is, then I guess I've moved from being a writer to a farmer, but that's okay too.
That is okay. Crossover. Like your books, I think, totally fit that environment, because even though there's a character in there who's dealing with his or her relationship with God, I mean, that's a valid thing, and it's not preachy, as you said. I did notice that you didn't write prayers out, and I thought that was interesting. The last passel of villains. Did you have a favorite villain that you wrote?
Oh, yeah. My favorite villain was, I'll just say no, I can't say the name because that would give it away.
Okay. Don't give it away then.
My villain does fit a psychological MO, I guess you would say, that he gave me. And when your readers finish the book and they're thinking, nobody is like that, wrong.
You also followed the rule of everything's getting worse and worse and worse, which always keeps, like you have taught me before, a reader turning the page. So I really enjoyed Deadly Encounter, and I'm going to have DiAnn's website up so that you can look at all of her books.
Airport Ranger Volunteer.